Minnesota University at the U.S. He's a pioneer in the field of organ transplants in Mexico. He has the largest number of cases in kidney transplant with more than 2,000 transplants. He is a trauma surgeon. He started with the ATLS program in Mexico. He has been the head of the medical education for surgeons. Currently, he's an educator from the American College National Educator. He has written 10 books related to kidney transplant trauma and surgery education. For more than 10 years, he was working as a military doctor and achieving the grade of colonel. Currently, he's working as director of the medical body in the ABC Center in Mexico City. Dr. Octavio Risper will share with us his keynote on how to organize a center for simulation. Thank you, Doctor. Thanks to the organizers of this event. It is truly a privilege to share with you my experiences related to this field. How to organize is, in this case, to talk about what I am living, what we are living. If you increase the light intensity, that's okay. So, what we will see first, what is the background related to this topic? As you heard in my resume, if I told you what I did for the military in 42 years, it was really when I was all bold, when I was there so young, and then becoming, being there for 42 years, all that experience, plus my experience in the transplant field. There we innovated many things for trauma as well, but all my activity goes linked or gets linked all the time to teaching and learning. So now we'll see, and it is very important to get to see what's the educational model that I recommend for all of those who are involved in teaching. But most than anything, when we talk about simulators, the motor abilities or motor skills. So I ask, why should we establish a simulator center? What do we want by this? How did we start? And I will talk to you about the Center for Simulators at the ABC Medical Center. It's a private hospital, but it has a residency program, and there being a dean, being the director of this educational program, I have been able to change some of the concepts related to the education of this field. And I will remind you very briefly that simulators, basically, simulators reproduce station experiences that might be of help when we have to face reality. That's what a simulator is. Yesterday, I was talking to my peers that we, through our lives, we ourselves are true simulators. Otherwise, ask your wife at home, ask your family, am I a simulator? No. No? So that's a word that fits to all of us. But in the medical field, and according to the current concepts on quality management, it is truly important that we are clear about this. Most than anything, that is that it allows us to make clinical diagnosis in virtual patients in order to prevent mistakes or maybe having less errors and, as you will see, achieving perfection. The objectives pursued in the medical field, in this case, would be practicing cases, clinical cases with virtual patients. But we will see. The moment we started teaching with simulators or by simulators, when we started, we were playing with rubber dummies, right? It was like children and having dolls and dummies there, and this is when we started working with them. But the main objective here was that the professor or teacher using simulators has to make possible that students rise their thinking to their analysis and that they are able to judge. We must increase or elevate the thinking of our students, and it also helps us presenting complex cases. As I said earlier, they have to reach to analysis when they face a difficult clinical scenario, and then the assessment could be even numeric. So the first thing I recommend, and this is according to the many years of experience, and I will tell you why, and it is that on what teaching refers, specifically when we're talking about simulators, we're talking about motor skills. All teachers should know what are the principles for learning in adults, and I will tell you about a course where this is taken as a basis. And think about each item of this. Think if educational objectives are met through simulators. First, it is a problem for current doctors that there are simulators and they don't participate of them in their teaching as a professor. So this is a stimulus for all of you, because this conference, and let's see this our exhibit room. Now, currently medical education is truly booming up. So the simulators provide experience, practice, the repetitions, and this allow us to retain in our memory the acts we perform. We need to be able to provide reinforcement. This is what we call feedback. In Spanish, we don't use that word. In education, I think reinforcement is better than feedback for us in Spanish. And here, of course, we apply the learning curve, and we like it. And this provides us with satisfaction. So all these concepts you have to be very clear about, so professors get to know about this. And for us to obtain motor skills, we as surgeons, pressure, velocity, power saving, and adaptability, this is something we are able to obtain through simulator centers. It used to be in patients, but with the consequence of making more mistakes. So these 4 steps to be able to master we obtain when we do this automatically. If I'm going to have a surgeon with the hernia after 2,000 surgeries, I'm doing it okay, but of course. But then this is something we can obtain through this simulator systems. So first of all, many of our students and many of us, as I said, as I will tell you, we are unconscious, non-skilled people. Maybe some of you who have not been able to work with simulators, you don't know what I'm referring to. But the moment you get to touch these, you get to see them, you start working on these, you go to the next step, which is unconscious or non-aware skills. We know there's something, but we are not able to do. We are conscious, unskilled. But if we practice and practice and practice, then we become aware, skilled surgeons. And practice will lead us to the next step, which is being skilled but not aware. We do things right, but we don't have to think about it so much and pay attention. This is as driving a car, or this is as playing some sport where movements are unconscious, become unconscious. So this is regarding the teaching principles that we have to keep in mind in order, or for all of us who teach through simulators. Okay, so this is a title. It says, why should we establish a center for simulators? So here I was thinking, why do we need this? What's the institution we should have? What should we acquire? And why are we going to use this? So it could be, I think my control is not working. So this is basic for you, and I know this is the first time I have the opportunity to attend to a session in your association, but this is mostly for medical schools where you have major degree students. So what should I have for whom? Who is going to teach this, and how should I prepare those teachers. This is the key point, because if we make you can invest largely. That could be it, but your objectives might be different. So you want these, may I, if you can pass the image, please. So, do you want it for a hospital where you have a program for residencies of specialties? Do you want it for a unit of specialists, as it is the case of the Mexican Association of Gynecologists? Or do you want it for a continuous education program, as the one we have with the ATLS program of advanced support for trauma? Or do you want it for a program to evaluate skills and competencies specifically? Or do you want it to use it in a program for the evaluation of specialty boards? For example, CONACEN. CONACEN is a board that regulates all the performance of all the different boards in Mexico. Enrique Bolton belongs to some of our committees, and he's very much interested on what we're doing, because probably in the future the evaluation and assessments of all specialists will follow this route. And when do we start using simulators? This we started with our ATLS program that comes from the American College of Surgeons, where I have been a teacher for 28 years now. And September 1986, we started in Mexico working with simulators. You can see these were the simulators for intubation, and we were the first to start with this program in Mexico. And you can see this was then taken to Guadalajara. Then we became the support team for Colombia, Venezuela, Costa Rica, and Panama. So the important thing about using simulators is that we can practice and we can have the hands-on, and that repetition would allow us to perfect. And then the important thing is the educational process that these practices convey. For example, we used dogs or pigs for surgical practice. Now it changed to the trauma man that you will see out here, where at the ABC hospital we're using this. When I knew about the cost of all this, I thought, in Mexico this is never going to be possible. It's so expensive. But it is possible. I don't know where the money comes from. I don't know what happens. But with enthusiasm, we achieve to have all this. Now, simulators. The simulators we use as traumatized patients, they were simulated patients that we trained in order to have the clinical scenario according to the practice to be performed by the doctor. This continues to happen. It is extraordinary. And this is when, and I will allow myself, who among you have attended the ATLS? Well, you know what we're talking about. This feeling of anxiety and anguish in front of a simulated patient is tremendous. But the key point here is that teachers must lead students up to where they want to be in terms of thinking. And you can see from 1987, our first pediatric patient is my son we're talking about. Of course, today I have grandchildren from him, but then we moved the program to Panama, and with this kind of education that used to be knowledge through the manual or guidelines, or manual more than anything, and then conferences is 10% of our course. Skills obtained through the simulators at surgical stations and with simulated patients. That's the key. Those are the keys. But the key more than anything is having the right teachers to attain such objectives. So think about that. It is both the equipment, but teachers as well. Teachers' thinking is important as well. So this program, by using simulators as well as the method, this method of teaching has led us for 28 years to rely on one of the most successful programs in the world to the least cost. we Mexicans know how to work well, and we know how to save, because most of the time we have short budgets. So in this past 28 years, including today, we have provided more than 2,700 courses, with 94 courses for instructors. And these are the key of the program. The program success relies on having the right teachers. This is the message, the take-home message. Having at these simulator centers professors that are well prepared. Otherwise, this objective won't be met. So we have trained 45,500 doctors, Mexican doctors, and Dr. Argomade and myself, we have been the instructors of these teachers. I don't think in Mexico there is an medical continuous education program that can reach this number by following quality standards that are very stringent. But Americans used to say that in Mexico they thought we were not able to do things right, and we can. We, according to my grandson, we are going to be the champions of this World Cup, the next World Cup. So I'm conveying through this screen 28 years of education that has reached these objectives. And for me, this is very easy to bring this to a simulator center, because we have lived through this all this time. So how did we start? And I want to give you two words about this. One was curiosity, and the other was serendipity. And curiosity, we provide a leadership course. And number one characteristic of a leader is curiosity. Curiosity makes us advance. And I can assure you, many of the activities you perform were born on curiosity. Curiosity makes us change and move on. So curiosity is inherent in children, but when we have curious adults with imagination, that is the instrument for success. So I have always been curious. My wife has always told me, please don't be so curious. But there's something else that happened to me, and I'm certain this has happened to many of you, and this is serendipity. What is serendipity? Serendipity is something that you find or you uncover by good luck, by chance, an unexpected fact that occurs when you're looking for something else. I will tell you my own story. And you will say, well, did Dr. Romero Quesada, did they get an agreement or what? So I was invited to give a talk on health leadership at some university, but I was going to give this course because I was originally from there, and I was going to eat pastes that day. Paste is a kind of British sandwich that the British people took to the Mount to Pachuca, and they said, "Oh, I will take the chance to eat pastes. My mother used to cook this deliciously." And he said, "I will show you something." And they took me to the simulator center of the Autonomous University at Hidalgo. If you haven't been there, you have to go there. That was serendipity for me. I was marveled, stunned, really. I was, and it is 100 meters away from where I am, and we have joint programs. But that day and the next days, I couldn't get to sleep. Because it wasn't possible. I was the director of the ABC hospital, where there are 1,700 doctors. All they are divas, all of them. And we had not the slightest idea that they were having, or we were having simulators of this kind. And I was thinking, oh, this is not possible. And then, after being 42 years in the military, 2 years working for the president, being the doctor of 2 presidents, you learn a lot. So the first thing we have to do the first thing you have to do is convince the boss. He's the one with the money. You have to have the capacity, and I don't want to offend anybody. You have to go beyond yourselves. And the first thing we had to do was to convince directors who are not doctors, so they are managers of a hospital, and they will provide the money for something good. So we paid a visit, and this was 2 years ago, or even less than 2 years ago. And we were received by the president of the university, Dr. Veras, as well as the directors of the hospital and professors I had already prepared for this. We paid them a visit. And these are our teachers. Pediatricians, ophthalmologists, urgency doctors, internal medicine, teaching. We brought to them the greatest team to get to see a simulator center. And from then on, I thought, I knew it. They gave us the extraordinary presentation. Here we have major students, their surgery lab, and this is when they explained to us what this was about. And I want to show you something. This picture with Luis Carlos, who was the person that started me about this, and he has been my advisor. I don't know if you have heard this sentence. We say, now from here on. In Spanish, it would be very colloquial, but from here on, we have everything. So Pachuca, if you don't get to know this clock, you can see also in the soccer team, they have, we were almost champions, but it was not possible. But here we have this tower clock, and this is the little town where they are. And from here on, this is where I have gotten, and from here, I will just move on. But this is a small town where I was born, and it was true. So this is a true phrase for me. So at their simulator system and the ATLS program, it refers to doing something, convince the others, and from there on. So I will see what is the field where we're playing at. And it turns out to be that the ABC Medical Center was founded 128 years ago, managed by a patronage, and you can see there are British people, American people, Mexican people, but it has both tradition and history, and this is a non-profit organization. But the certificates that they have are very good. Certifications they have the Joint Commission International. I think there are only 2 hospitals in Mexico with the Joint Commission, or 2 or 3, and we have been awarded with the National Prize for Quality or National Award for Quality, Ibero-American Award, and of course the certifications provided by the Ministry of Health and the General Council of Health. So everything, all this relates to keeping something, and the flag of this institution is quality and safe management of patients. And this is what we are aiming, and this is very expensive, takes lots of effort, but nurses, maintenance staff, maintenance personnel, and doctors, they are not employees as they would be for the Social Security or the military. These are independent doctors, and it is difficult to arrange them all of them in the proper manner. So by this flag, we have the capacity to sell this idea, and this is when we created, and this has been only out there for 1 or 2 years when we created the simulator center, aimed to reach the institution's objective related to quality and safe management of patients, and the medical corps vision. It is very clear that their mission and vision are related to this. And what we did was that, obviously, of course, this creates jealousy. Why? Because everything you want, you're undergoing all this, but the common good, this is something we have to look for, and we have to convince everybody that this relates to the common good. So all surgeon chiefs, from there we have neurosciences, plastic surgery, all kinds of medicine, internal medicine, critical medicine, anesthesiology, pediatrics, cardiology, gynecology, all of them, they must have a coordinator teacher for each segment for the simulator center. And to these professors, we have provided a course on education and leadership. So we have the field, we have the ball, and we have the players. And we have to make them work all together. These are the courses we provide to teach how to teach. So all professor that wants to enter this as coordinator of their specialty or professor, they must have passed a course provided by us. We provide these courses twice a year, and this was spurred from the educational project of the American College based on the ATLS principles. So as you can see, this is a sequence from 28 years ago. We have had 45,000 doctors that we have led up to this simulator center. And based on this experience, we have achieved important things. This simulator center has as objectives, in our case, our hospital that has 1,700 doctors in a residency program to assure quality in the management of patients. And by this, we oblige authorities to participate in this project by not blocking anything and by providing the economic funds that this requires. And of course, continuous medical education. We have 180 residents, and the reduction of medical mistakes through the adult teaching that I talked to you about. And the team we rely on continues to grow. We have electronic simulators, anatomical models, and we have obtained some results from the academic groups, as you will see. And the most important thing right now is to establish an assessment program based on competency. So let's see what this is.
Okay, we have the HAL. You're going to see it here. It's an electronic model that you can simulate cases, neurological cases, respiratory, cardiological, and trauma, etc. The NOEL, the pediatricians. We have the virtual simulators, LabSim, LabMentor. These are the ones that we are using right now, especially in the ATLS system in Mexico. And here we're going to see what competencies all the specialists need to pass. Here we have all of the residents of specialties need to go to the simulator system and develop these programs of 40 hours in surgery, 20 hours in gynecology, pediatrician, anesthesiology, ER, and especially in specialties, especially the residents of surgery and gynecologists are the ones that go the most, but also the intensive therapy, the ER, and they are evaluated. They have already been asked and authorized, these simulators, that fundamentally will be for graduate schools, residency, and as we are going to see, the specialists. For gastroendoscopy, broncho, we have the ones for arthroscopies, we have the ones for virtual surgery, pelvic floor, for angiology, for hysteroscopy, and things and procedures in gynecology. This has already been included, and we are developing the programs now. We have gone to other centers to see what it's all about. This center in Florida is a really great business. It is a center made by employers that sell courses like the ATLS. They charge them as if they were real. And nurses and pediatricians and many other people go. The ABC is associated with the Methodist Hospital in Houston. They have the MIDI, which is a center of education by simulators, and they have the Da Vinci's. They charge $3,000 per day if you want to go and practice with your Da Vinci a little while. But the one in Pachuca is even prettier, and you eat pasta there. Okay. With all of this, what do we have to do? The residents are going to train But for us, and to maintain this quality and security in the patients, we have to know what the evaluation by competencies is. This is not difficult to understand it, but it's very difficult to put it into practice. I hope the Secretary of Health has in mind this. They've been told what it is about, and we are going ahead, and a model that can be followed. So every doctor has to be evaluated periodically in 3 areas. First, what he knows, what he can do with what he knows, and how he makes the other people feel, his students or himself, with what he knows and what he does, which are the attitudes. And for us, attitudes are extraordinarily important because attitudes imply following values. And if you don't follow values, and we have them written in all of the walls of the hospital, if you don't follow a value, they just say, hey, where did you go wrong here? And he knows. So all of this goes all together. So we have in these last years, we got everybody together, all the committees, chief of services, and then we said, you know what? We have to put a concept of evaluation in our doctors. Very difficult. Imagine, because I am the chief. Okay, but if they call me because they're going to evaluate me, and I would say, hey, I've been working as a surgeon for 40 years, I've written books, I've done transplants, well, that doesn't matter. You have to be evaluated. It's not easy, but we will be able to do it. So committees, CEOs, chief of service, all of them, and something very important, a committee that we formed for the planning of medical retirement, because really we see in our hospital doctors that are old. They didn't know how to plan their retirement. They are sick and their abilities have gone down, and there's no way to tell them you cannot continue. But in this rules, it is established to have an evaluation by competences for everybody, or when a CEO asks, because of the quality and security in the attention of the patient, there's no way that you won't be able to do it. We're going to help them, the institution, and everybody else. So it was accepted. All the CEOs, minimum, all the residents, and in anesthesia have to develop these abilities. I won't mention them because they are all the services, but they are punctions, intubations, management, heart management, and scenarios in HAL. Internal medicine, they have to know how to manage emergencies in internal medicine. The gynecologists with the Nobel have to do wonders in this, and we make them think upward. Pediatrics, minimum. The pediatrician that enters to hand a premature baby in the expulsion room has to have a certification that he must at least know how to intubate the baby, a preemie, or how to cannule an umbilical vein and reanimate him. In the intensive care, with all of these evaluations, the ER with all of these evaluations, management of a heart attack, and in a repetitive form, and that they can be evaluated. Neurosurgery, the orthopedist, we have to tell them how to put a nail in the wall. Well, no, not really. Sorry if there's an orthopedic surgeon here. Vascular surgery, pediatric surgery. There are pediatrics that do laparoscopic surgery. They have to go and get certified in the simulators. What we are looking for here, more than abilities, is attitudes of they are willing to be evaluated. Nobody's going to fail them, but they are afraid and they are resisting this change. The old doctors, like 1,000 and up. But young people, you want to come in here, you have to do this, and that's it. And in general surgery, we have to put the example. The director and everybody has to do this. So, this is what we're doing now. It isn't 100% done, but I know it's going to be developing. There is no way of getting out of this way, and it is our main objective in this. Now let's talk about the retirement program. I would say, especially the surgeons, everybody feels once in a while we were superheroes. all of us. For our children and for our patients, those patients that you have saved their life, or you have a little child, you're a superhero. Everybody has been a superhero. But the problem with the physiological changes, no one stops them. Hulk is in chemotherapy. Superman, he already has prosthesis in the hip and some stents, and Catwoman is in Prozac. And so that's how we are. This doctor in North Carolina is 94 years old and is still working in labor. When must the doctor stop? And that is a problem that we are facing in a private hospital. In the military, well, they told me, you're leaving, bye-bye, that's it. In any hospital in the health sector, they'll tell you away according to what president is in charge right now. But in a private institution, no. So we are the ones that have to put the example. Believe me that I've operated appendixes of the most famous people that you can imagine. Yes? But there's me doing an appendectomy and I was failed. But I'm going to evaluate myself. I had to evaluate myself and evaluate myself constantly. That is our objective, and I think the simulator center is going to be very important. When we had this talk, they said, why do we want a simulator center? We've done this in a year and a half, in 2 years practically. They are giving us everything that we're asked for, but the most important thing, first of all, begin with curiosity, have the political ability to convince the authorities that if they don't give them the permission, begin to think who is going to be formed to follow the program, but especially is to form their professors. This is a meeting of educators in education, and the most important thing is form professors. The thing here is that what has to be the attitude of the professors that are now probably medicine students or are residents, from the ones that are going to teach medicine to the little kids that are 3 or 4 years old now, that are geniuses in technology and whose attitudes are changing and will be changing. Before my summary, I think we have time, a couple of minutes, if there are any questions or comment of what we have said. Yes? In the time that you have this system in the hospital, what percentage of reduction in mistakes in the medical practice and in the point of view of money? Well, I don't think, if we had more time, I don't think that you can measure it right now. What I can tell you is, in the morbidity committees in the ABC hospital, there were 3 key areas of complications. One was the vascular access, the jugular punctions with pneumothorax bleedings. The second was colon and rectum surgery. The third, morbid obesity. So in the first field, at least, all the residents in anesthesia, the ER, the ones that put catheters, have to go to the simulated system and puncture the dummy 50 times. At least one knows that the person goes and develops this. About how much it has diminished and how much it implies in cost, I can't tell you. It's very difficult. But the quality control program in the hospital is a national example. We have just had, I was talking with, there is a link in internet where there are the 10 best hospitals of Hispanoamerica. And in first place we have, it sounds, well, I was going to make an adjective, but it sounds, believe me, before I was in this post, I was down there operating in the operating room. But to put to have a good challenge, that everybody washes their hands all the time. that the medicines are really well controlled. The control of quality that the Union Commission has to do the outside time out of the surgery room, the right place, all the quality controls are being done. And the indicators of each doctor in the hospital is done confidentially. One can go and see their indicators. About how much it has reduced in cost, I can't tell you that. But a patient that avoids a really big mistake and that you stop him from going to the ER, in one day you are saving a lot of money. So it is a culture that we want to introduce. If the doctor evaluates himself, he is more careful. If you are going to be evaluated on how you manage and they put you this, how you drive better, well, yes. The question is, the end of all of this is this, but I can't answer you that. I can't. Good morning, doctor. I would like to know how you calculated the number of hours of practice for all of the students. By antecedents or... No, it wasn't calculated like that. The residents go whenever they can. Those are the hours that they are assisting. They are not hours that we impose. There are residents in surgery. I am the professor of the course. Or you go, or you go. There's no other way. It isn't a very orthodox model, but there's no other way. So these are the hours that they are assisting, not the ones that we say, depending on what they have to do. Because in the School of Medicine, we do put the hours. In a program of residency, they are very busy. They have sessions at 7 a.m. and they have to go to surgery, the majority of them. The internal medicine are in theory and science fiction, and they don't come down. So how do we make them? No. They want to hit them. They are making us bullying. No. So thank you very much. Sorry, before I finish, I'm going to do my summary. So we saw what a psychomotor teaching is. Each has their own reason to establish an education system by simulators. We saw the history that has led us to do the teaching model of the TLS program that began with simulators 28 years ago. The Center of Education by Simulators in the Medical Center ABC, the evaluation of the development and the evaluation that we want to be taken into account to the maximum, how competencies can be evaluated in the Medical Center ABC, and the competencies to be made by specialists and residents in each of them. It is a very big privilege to have been with you. Thank you very much.